First of all, thank you everyone for coming to the event. And I hope everyone enjoys it. So basically we're going to go through some slides, and then after that, we're going to just open it up for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Thomas. Nothing fancy, guys. I just put some talking points kind of to give you a little bit of the background information about me, about what I do, really opening it up for questions or, you know, where we want to dive in. Just to start, okay, so a few things about me. Of course, I couldn't go without showing my family, but, oh, sorry, going back. So I am a first immigrant that came here in the 90s with my parents. I've been lucky enough. I've been living in the Bay Area all this time. Started in San Francisco and then moved in Peninsula. Just a few things for laugh. Came here with very limited English at school, just like you guys. You know, you studied a foreign language. We studied English, but my English was pretty basic. So just one story from my life when I came here is, I don't know, it must have been like, I don't know, month 4 in the country or something. And I had to go in the store. And as you can imagine, the store experience is very different. And I look around and I look at the cheese, small piece of cheese, and I see the price $5. And then I look up and I see the whole head of cheese and the price is like $8. So what do? I just think about, oh, such a good deal. Let me grab that big thing, right? I mean, it's hard to get it. So I, you know, managed to get it somehow. I go to the register and the register lady looks at me like, you know, I'm not all together, of course, right? Who carries such a big thing? And then she starts weighing it. And then my eyes go like, why? Because I see the price going, you know, over $100. I did not even have the money. So with the limited English, I had to explain them. I really did not mean it, and please don't count it. So it was one of the things that just stuck with me for as long as I live. Every time I go to the store, I always look at this cheese and look at the price and like laugh to myself. Anyways, my family, I married here, and I have 2 sons. One of them is sitting here, and one of them is just turned 10. And we have a little cute dog that's been with us now for almost 11 years. The family is very big tennis fans. We obviously got into that because of Thomas and his passion for the sport. We've been kind of doing that. And at this point in my career and in my life, I do pay attention at giving back, right? Somewhere in your career, at some point, somebody is going to help you, right? And, you know, we all kind of, we don't think about it much when it happens, but as years go on, you kind of reflect on it and you think about some of those instances as the pivotal parts in your life, right? So as we get to a particular time in our career, in our life, giving back to the community is very important. So from my part, Carlman High School, which is the local high school here, they have a yearly program where you sign up to be a student mentor. This year has been weird. I've been doing it for the past, I think, 4 years. This year, you know, this Zoom thing doesn't do good for me. I don't like it. I don't feel, you know, connection. So I'm not doing it this year, but I would normally get a high school student and mentor that student through the year. I also, as part of one of my jobs, I actually did the STEM support for Plano schools, and Plano is in Texas. So it was really cool, got to talk to the mayor of the city and kind of got to go to the schools and see, you know, the attitude and the hungry kids that actually want to learn. So it was great experience. And then I mentor teens on my own. So if anybody reaches out for any sort of advices or just coaching, mentoring, I have pleasure out of doing that. What is my experience? So as I said, I came here, just graduated from high school. So I did my schooling years back in the former USSR. And when I came here, education here was quite expensive. So I actually went to San Francisco State University, got my bachelor in something that's called CIS, and that is the Computer Information Systems, where it's a very nice mix of coding, programming, and some business knowledge, some analytical skills. You know, we had classes on some of the clearing and things like that. Worked well for me. And then I actually went, I think with almost like the next year, I've applied for master's, and I got my master's in management from San Francisco State. I know a lot of you guys work very hard, and just wanted to say that I did all my education at night. First, you know, first immigrant kind of, I had to work all the way through. So I worked kind of like 8 to 5, and then school 6 to 9 or 10. Hard, but it pays off. So my point here is, don't think you have it hard. You don't have it hard, but just continue plugging through. It seems like, oh my God, is it paying off? Is it needed? I can attest to you guys that education is very important. And just getting your degrees, whatever you wish to have, you know, while you don't have families, while you don't have kids, is extremely important, and you will appreciate it, you know, later. Then my company sent me for some executive education at Stanford, totally different experience. It was very, very nice to actually even meet professors at Stanford, meet a very, very nice group of successful women. I took a class with all the women. Like it's not a class, it's like a program. So it was great for me in terms of every opportunity like that allows you to build for your network. So I look at these opportunities as really, you know, building that network, which, you know, really helps in all sorts of scenarios, right? Finding a first job, growing at the job, even sharing experiences, sharing thinking, having somebody as a sounding wall is extremely, extremely important. And then after my graduation, so one thing I do want to say is, so how did I get from where I started to where I am today? So I say here I have extensive experience in business operation and product management, and I've been doing it for the past many years. I started out of college when I was getting my bachelor in San Francisco State. As you can imagine, you know, I'm not going to predate myself. I'm not going to give that to you, but I'll say one thing. It was the land of no Facebooks, of no Googles still, and there wasn't a lot of companies. So what I did is I, in our university, they had an old-fashioned, I don't even know, you know, if you guys can imagine, it's like a board with like, you know, stickies on it of all the different internships, nothing electronic. So we had PG&E out of all the companies coming in and offering internships for people that are about to graduate. So they had, I'm very proud to say, they had like, I don't know, 5 spaces. I don't remember now all the counts, but it was, you know, a great big group of people applying. I was actually honored to be chosen for the internship. And once I graduated with my bachelor, PG&E kept me working there in their IT department. So I started by actually writing code. I wrote a lot of stored procedures at the time, if any of you remember, Sybase database, right? I don't even know if it's currently even used. I haven't seen the word in a long time. Oracle stored procedures. I've done a lot of coding on Unix, scripting and things like that. And then my next job, you know, again, coding and analysis. I fell in love with analyzing data by really, it's really interesting because first you write, you know, a SQL, a little SQL to get whatever you need. And then you have to like look at the data. We did not have fancy tools at the time, right? Like Splunk or Tableau or anything like that. So it was quite a bit of manual and Excel spreadsheets and things like that. But I really fell in love of finding like pieces that fit together in that data analysis. So I would say for my first 3 jobs or so, I really wrote code. And then I realized that, you know, and during all of this time, you know, I was getting my master's. So with my master's, I was also working and then going to school at night. So I got my master's in the evening as well. And I realized that, you know, just sitting there and looking at my computer and writing code is not necessarily where I see myself spending, you know, my next 20, 30 years of my career. So I tried different things. I then went into the analyst role. So it was a business analyst, actually, you know, pulling the data. It's not only looking at the data, but I was actually writing queries and doing things like that. And then I went and I tried something that's called product management. And we can talk more about that if you guys want to. And then I ended up in the program management and running business operations. And this is what I do right now. So I've been, you know, as you probably looked at my LinkedIn profile, but I've been at McAfee for, that's been my longest run in my career. I've been there for roughly 9 years. I joined the company when we were about 3,000 people. We were purchased by Intel, and then we were sold back to private equity by Intel. So all my 9 years felt like I worked for different companies, but it's been an interesting ride. At McAfee, we had roughly 300 releases per quarter. Please keep in mind that not all the releases are equal, right? So you can go into a release that is big, like you're releasing a new different feature to a product, or it could be a release where you're just popping up, you know, or fixing an error somewhere or bug, or like creating a marketing splash screen or something like that, right? So they're big and small releases, but the number is mind-boggling because 300 releases per quarter is actually quite a bit. Smart Things was also a very interesting experience. Smart Things is actually part of Samsung, and that was my kind of experience working for a Korean company, which by itself is very, very eye-opening. Very different culture, lots and lots of learning. Yeah, and now I'm with Delta Dental, almost 2 years, and I was brought up to build the program management and business operations function there. Yeah, so build that and maturing that, working with really the whole enterprise. Because even though my group sits under IT, but the reach is really across the whole enterprise. So really, really cool. I like that. Oh, this is more about what my team does, but I wanted to stop here, and the next slide is going to be drilling into what program management function does as an example at Delta Dental, just to give you a little bit more understanding. But I wanted to see, you know, if you wanted to ask any questions or anything. No?
I actually have one question, if you wouldn't mind.
Go for it.
So 300 releases per quarter is, to me, a mind-boggling number. And I wanted to know, how do you manage a team to get everybody ready for these releases? Because I'm sure that it's multiple people, you have to get on the same page, and everybody has to get a certain amount of things done so that by date X, you can have that release, and then possibly even plan for 3 days after then, and 2 days after then, and 1 day. Like, how did you manage all of this?
Right. So as you can imagine, I didn't do it myself, right? I had a team, you know, everybody has their own, you know, projects or releases, and how do you bring it together is really, that's the whole art of being a program manager, right? And I think the key of it is really understanding how pieces fit together. So for example, if I need to deliver a feature, what all that goes into that feature, right? What am I touching from the technology perspective? What, you know, what education, what preparedness should I ensure that my support, technical support has, right? What are the communication that I need to put out there on the market? So my marketing team needs to be plugged in. In some cases, a release may be a, you know, a CD in a box, right? So you have to make sure that the manufacturing understands and knows, because, oh my God, they have such a lengthy process to produce a box, right? That you get, you know, if you get a software in a box. I don't know if you get them anymore, but you know. So it's really about where the value of the program manager comes in is really understanding how these pieces fit together and what needs to happen in what order. So by doing something, you know, you don't get it in the beginning, right? And that's why people normally get into project management careers. So, you know, I have people on my team that were engineers or QA, and then they kind of go into the program management career because you have to understand, right, how pieces fit together. So, you know, timeline, right? So you need to do something in 3 months. Well, you know, in order for you to release something at the end of November, my marketing team had to produce some sort of collateral back in September. Well, not only that, but I know that my legal team had to review the contract, even, you know, when the project just started. So, Raphael, I guess what I'm saying is where you bring the value is understanding how this whole thing fits together. And then you kind of lead the team. And you don't do it in silo, you don't do it by yourself, you really do it with your counterparts and all, like you normally have counterparts in development, in QA, in product management, and all of those different functions to make sure this whole thing comes together. But you're really a choreographer of the whole thing. And there's more to it, but, you know, in a nutshell, those are the main things that, you know, I think about.
I think, Melina, you had a question, right?
Yeah, I had a question. I wanted to know about how exactly you went with communicating when you worked at that Korean company, because one of the things I'm doing is learning Korean to work in the Korean beauty industry. So I would want to know how different it is to communicate, because I know just learning the language in and of itself will help, but I think there's a culture, a work culture that's different.
Absolutely, you're hitting it right on the head. It's absolutely very different culture. And what's different, so I worked, or Smart Things were part of the huge company, right, Samsung, and the company had an established, you have to understand that Korean companies are very, you know, rank based, right? So, you know, it's almost like military, right? My manager, my VP has to approve something, like I don't approve. So one thing that I learned over time is you get in the meetings with them, and you're asking for a decision, where an American company or any other company, right? You get in the meeting, you discuss an issue, and you can make a decision. In Korean company, they don't make decisions in the meeting. They then have to run it by their superior, and then the superior needs to make a decision. So that was a big shift. Another thing is really observing how they work. I mean, their work ethic is phenomenal. I mean, they are so precise and so particular. And if they tell you that they will deliver something by 2 a.m., you're like, it's 100%, it's going to be there by 2 a.m. I think now it's my interpretation of what I've observed. They put work first, and all the kind of like what I need to do for the work. I'm not saying that family is not as important, very important value, but they prioritized work. So in my particular case with Samsung, what was really interesting is what I heard from them is because Samsung has such a good name in Korea, if they are to lose a job at Samsung, they're almost guaranteed that no other companies will hire them. It was really, really interesting. So you would see people there with, you know, many years of experience. And even if they're not happy, they wouldn't say it because, you know, they just don't want to lose a job. Right? And the other thing that I wanted to point out, and that's not only particular with Korean companies, but I've seen it with Chinese companies too, language barrier. Language barrier is huge. They speak English, but, you know, over Zoom, you know, with some delays and all of the other things that come through, it's very, very hard to understand. And you have to not even understand. I bet that it's very hard for them to understand us, like me, for example, with my accent, but it's really pacing yourself, learning to pace yourself when you speak, you know, kind of like, you know, listening and things like that is very, very important. And I think they're very big on respect as well. They have to be able to respect you and, you know, they want to be respected. Interesting. I would say that, you know, I worked with Chinese companies. I worked with, or people in China, right? I had a group in China. I had people in Japan, right? But I think Korean company stands out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. You guys don't be shy. I don't have slides for an hour, right? I'm hoping for questions or discussion.
Okay, I have a question then.
Yeah, go for it.
So during the time when you were getting your master's, you were also a coder. I'm really interested as to what like the work atmosphere looked like as a woman there, because I know even like during that time, it wasn't like, it's still not like there's not a lot of women in the industry. So I'm really interested to hear about that experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when you go, you know, in technology and engineering, it's, you know, still, although better, but predominantly, you know, a lot of male. But I think, you know, I never felt like I was singled out or anything like that. I actually, you can turn any situation to your advantage, you know, and being a woman, you know, with men, you can, you know, you can ask even for help. They're more willing to help you, you know, for whatever reason, right? I'm not saying it's because I'm a woman or whatever, right? But you build that friendly kind of atmosphere. I personally, and that's personal, right? I had bosses, male and female. I love male bosses. They seem to understand where, you know, I myself, right? I'm hungry. I have my ego. I have my goals. And so as a woman, we work hard, right, to get there. But I very much enjoyed and like working for a male boss. They seem to, I think they understand us very, very well. And we understand them. Like, I never thought that I was different, you know, than like it was a group kind of thing. But in terms of, you know, I think another question or another point you made is working and getting masters. And that has nothing to do whether you're coding or doing whatever. That's hard by itself, right? So just when you fit in both of those, you know, you just have like literally no time. So, you know, at some point, you know, I stopped and I thought, is that really what I want? Like literally, you know, my Saturday was I had to do the homework for the Monday, right? So you don't want to, like, I didn't want to miss out on all the parties, right? Where, you know, I was young, I wanted to go out, but it's a commitment. it's a commitment, and not everybody can make it, and not everybody's willing to make it, right? So it's really up to your comfort. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. But one thing I do want to tell you, that as a woman, right, maybe it's because of the woman, maybe it's because I'm a very outgoing person. Like I said, that switch when I decided that just sitting and coding like for the next 20 years wasn't for me, was, you know, realization and really like what it is that you want to do going forward, like how you want to grow in your career, right? But I think it's cool to start with actually writing code, understanding how it works. I just I had a kick out of it. Cool. Any other points? Any other thoughts, guys?
I actually have a question to follow up in relation to Kimi's question. I imagine that in your work life, you've progressed and gone up in promotions and different jobs. And I don't know personally, but I can imagine there is a very competitive environment in the workforce to get these different positions. And I know from different teams that I've been in that guys can be very competitive and very childish when it comes to other people doing better than them, especially if it comes to a woman doing better than them. I just wanted to get your understanding, how in a day-to-day experience did you notice anything from different guys being, you know, like nasty towards you, or maybe trying to bring you down because you were a threat in some fashion?
Yeah, I mean, it's not only, I wouldn't say it's a division between guys and women. So first of all, I mean, you have to be I think that no matter which field you're in, you have to be a strong individual, right? You have to be able to kind of feel good, you know, for what you do. So this thread, there are individuals that see thread in people that are stronger than them, right? And I mean, it comes equally, I think, from guys and women, right? I don't think it's specific to guys. Like personally, I'm extremely competitive. And I know a lot of women that are very, very competitive, and guys would not even go close to that competition level, right? So I think competitiveness doesn't have, like, I mean, it's not about a male or female. I think it's just in you or not in you, right? But as far as, you know, people at work that feel, you know, threatened by you, you know, one of the worst things that can happen, happens sometimes, is if you work for a manager that feels threatened by you, right? So in that case, the situation is, you know, very limited exposure of your work, very low chances of promotion, right? And I think you don't feel appreciated. And I've seen it in the industry, and those are not good managers, totally not good managers, but they exist, right? And in some cases, you know, they exist and they prosper because they do a very good managing app, right? So managing up aspect of their work works perfectly, and therefore, you know, they're there. But as a person working for them, it doesn't work because, you know, they're that threatened by you. So it does happen. If you're in that situation, it's very hard, you know, and it's not very, you know, positive for you. I would, you know, I've had it, and I just have to switch a job. I mean, you know, if you cannot get out of that place, then, I mean, I look at it as an uphill battle, really. But it does happen, for sure happens.
So as a manager, what stands out in applicants to you? Like what specific things? Like personality, like, I don't know.
Yeah. You know, over the years, I mean, resume is just a piece of paper, and that's what bugs me, right? Because the first thing is really for that piece of paper to represent you, and it does no justice. And not only that, but the current systems are only looking at keywords. And if I am, as a manager, specifying that you need to have a particular skill, my recruiter is going to look for that particular skill. And if you don't have it on your resume, your name doesn't even cross my desk, right? So that is a huge hurdle. And that's why you hear a lot of people talk about this, black hole where resumes are going, right? So first, it's really important how the resume is written and how many keywords are in the resume. Now, the fine line is to not overdo it. Because once you submit your resume and your resume passes that first, hurdle, you're not going to change it then, right? And say, oh, I just put it in there, right? So you have to be able to speak to your resume. So it's a very fine walk that you have to do. When I look at the resume, once it passes that, I look at different things, right? I look at what people have done. If it's, people like you, right, coming out of college, I want to see what they've done in college. Like this club that you guys are doing would stand out to me, in my opinion, right? Instead of just a person just cruising through the classes, right? It shows me the interest. I would look at some, extracurricular activities or doing something good for the community. Obviously, I will see like what skills you list, where you're comfortable, but those are the things that would differentiate a person on that piece of paper. So let's say you cleared that hurdle, right? And you can imagine there are a lot of resumes, right, that cross everybody's desks. So, but once you pass that hurdle, then the next one is that first interview or first phone screen. That's normally 30 or 45 minutes. And it's really at that time, your personality has to jump, right? Your personality has to jump out and, I have to feel that there's a good match, right? Not only between the skills, but also match with the team, match with the enterprise environment, with the team's environment, and, with what I'm looking for. So I guess when I talk to people at that point, I don't look at the resume anymore. I just try to listen to what they're saying. And I want you guys to know, a lot of questions asked don't have the right or wrong answer. They just don't. I just ask them to listen to your thought process. So it is very important to show that, you're logical, you make decisions, you stand out in the crowd, you have your leadership skills and things like that. Don't worry about, am I answering it right or wrong? Because a lot of times it's just an open field of answers. So I think it's important, to get that one going. Another thing that I want to say, not necessarily in the interview, but somebody taught me a long time ago, is what's called an elevator speech. Anybody heard of that? What is your elevator speech? A lot of times when you start the job or you're looking for the job, you want to have that elevator speech. And what it is really a 1-2 minute speech that you can just give it to somebody to sell yourself. So imagine yourself riding an elevator with your CEO, and your CEO, who doesn't know who you are, asks you, hey, what do you do in this company? So that's your elevator speech. So I heard a story. I actually have to tell you a story. One of my friends said that Larry Ellis, he is very known for being a very tough boss. And so what I heard, I think it was Larry, is that he was riding the elevator with one of the employees one morning, and he was asking the employee, hey, what are you doing? And then he went into, and what are company's values? And a person couldn't answer, and the person lost the job. Not a fun story, but person was fired on, in the elevator. So even though, I know and I hear that people, values, culture, it's okay. Those are important things to know, right? And be ready for that elevator, spiel that you might need to give. Yeah, good question. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about what, as an example, right? Because we talk about project management, and I hear from people, oh, that sounds interesting, and I want to go in there, but what is it really? So it's just a one use case, right, from my team and what I'm doing right now with my team and what my team is covering. And that's outside of the business operations, right? The business operations is really, you know, KPIs, how you structure and reviews and all that kind of stuff. This is really the program management. So you can see the capabilities of providing that planning and governance. We play a big role in establishing what I mean by portfolio. What do I mean by portfolio, actually? What is portfolio? Portfolio is a group of, you know, projects or programs that your company or enterprise is executing. So we have, like, when you hear somebody say we have a portfolio of projects, that's what they mean, right? It's really all the projects that are getting executed. You can then break them into different portfolios, but the grand scheme of things, portfolio is like everything that happens in the company. And this portfolio oversight has to do with planning, you know, financial planning is a huge piece. That's what I'm doing right now. And we are planning our budget for 2021. And so also resides in my team. We're working with finance, but a lot of the conversation and discussion is happening within the team. We are also producing all sorts of dashboards. We're also talking through, some of these words will sound foreign to you, and that's okay. So what I mean by portfolio review board is really a verbiage for this company, but what it is essentially is, you know, I'm responsible to report up to my CEO on how we are doing on the projects. That meeting happens monthly. And it's a big meeting. It's a huge meeting, but as you can imagine, with lots of visibility. So, you know, it's an important thing that we own, right? What is Agile? Anybody's familiar with Agile? Sort of, kind of, yeah. So Agile is a fancy name for a new way on how we execute projects. And what it means is that instead of doing projects in the 1 year, like you plan the whole 1 year at the same time, or 2 years or whatever, you do the whole planning of the project, and then you do the execution, and then you do the testing, and then you do the release. So we call it waterfall. You do every single phase, one after another. Agile is you break it into small increments. So the premise of Agile is you can fall, like you can fail fast and change fast. The whole premise is really, if my increments are at 2 weeks, maybe in a matter of 4 weeks, I will know if my idea works. And if it doesn't work, I can pivot quickly. Another premise of the Agile is that you have small form teams. Instead of, you can imagine, I don't know, 300 people engineering group, we now break them into 10 people team. And each team is responsible for a particular deliverable. So you can imagine it's much easier to see what gets produced, very good accountability, very good transparency, and things like that. But the company needs to go through this transformation to become an Agile. As you can imagine, you have to change your processes, you have to change your group structures, you have to change how you manage it, and things like that. So my team is responsible to drive that transformation for the whole enterprise. That's all those small bullet points talk in a nutshell about what I just covered. Project management delivery is the way I say it. It's a bread and butter of project management. Really taking a concept, taking it through the what we call SDLC, which is the software development life cycle. You take it through that cycle and then you release it. So project manager is it's a central part of that whole process. And as you can see here, you know, cross-functional team alignment, right? We talked about how many teams it takes to release something. This is exactly what this is talking about. RAID. Anybody had seen that term? That's actually industry standard term. Huh?
Referring
And
to
all
the
it says,
storage system?
say it again.
Are you referring to the storage system, RAID?
No. This refers to project management acronym, and this stands for risks, assumptions, issues, dependencies, and that's a good test. I don't remember the second D, but it really breaks down into those essential things that we do as a project management. That word is industry standard. So if you want to put something cool on your resume, go for it, because it's a simple concept. And then we also drive operational excellence. What is the operational excellence? Imagine a 4,000 people organization. And if there's no central place that tells you this is a standard process, how we execute the project. This is a standard process, how we report on a project. This is a standard process, how we escalate, how we manage budget. Then everybody will do it differently. You will have no idea what's happening. So my team is responsible for what we call operational excellence, which is really providing the guidelines and developing those best of class processes and procedures and driving that through the organization. What do you think about that? Any questions, any thoughts?
Wow,
Interesting, boring.
There's a lot to take in.
I know. That's why I didn't want to go through the bullet points. By the way, guys, so my bad. I took this slide from the presentations that I do somewhere else. And that's why I didn't even touch all the bullet points, because I know it's an overload. So I just did the right-hand side. But I wanted you to see, I mean, this piece right here, I have a whole presentation with this slide as an opener, like it's my opening slide, to talk about the value that my team brings in the organization. And then I go into how to engage with my team. But I thought that this was good so you can appreciate different, areas that we touch.
Could I
And
ask you a question?
I was just gonna say, are each of these bullet points or each of these things run by different people?
It depends. In some cases, so let's say project management delivery, right? So I have a project manager that has a project. He or she needs to go through different health and stage gates. What it is really project goes through the phases. You start thinking about the concept, you code, you test, and between each of those gates, between each of those phases, there is some sort of checks and balances. So that person needs to do that. That person needs to manage the RAID, as I said already, for the project. That person needs to manage financials for that project, and that person needs to manage all the cross-functional teams for the project. So one project manager manage all of these aspects for a project. Where in some other bullet points, like I have a person that's managing, on the first bullet point, demand management. That's her job, because it's a lot of things to do. That is her job. So it really depends. Did I bore you yet?
No, not at all.
No, good. Because the thing about project management in particular is, I don't think that there is a degree for it. Like, without actually going through and understanding what the person does, you kind of put your own, oh, I think it does this, or I think it does that. But yeah, go ahead.
So one thing I wanted to ask was, you mentioned in the portfolio review board, you have to report to your CEO once a month and update him on how the portfolios are doing. And I wanted to get an idea of how you take all this information and sum it up into 3 points that you can give to your CEO, and you can have this intricate discussion about what's going on without taking up a whole bunch of time.
That's right. That's a great point. And that is where, a lot of thinking is going, right? So what I have And you're absolutely right. So every single month, I think about what's important that happened that month that I want to bring my CEO attention, right? So I have a standard, the way that I do it is I have a standard dashboard. I can find it, but it's, it's a PowerPoint, one slide that has some of your main we call them key performance indicators. KPI is another industry standard term. And those would be your budget, how well you're doing on your releases, and how well you're doing on your improvements, right? So that's my one slide. And as you said, every single month I go through my portfolio and I think, oh, so this month, I had this wonderful release that impacted, so many customers, right? That brought us so much savings or things like that. And I will talk about that release. I'll pull up the slide, but I'll talk about a particular point on that slide. So that's how I do those. You are absolutely right. I do not pull up the slide and go point by point by point with the CEO. I really give him a gist. And how do you do it? I don't know. That's where the experience comes in. You kind of observe, you learn, and it is a skill, by the way. Presentation is a skill. And I would say that this is a skill that all of you guys need to develop, because when I started, again, on the presentations, right? When I started, I was so scared to present in front of people. Like, that was my thing. Like, I knew I knew the content, but as soon as I would get in front of people, I would forget it. Like, I wouldn't remember a thing, right? And the thing that was in my mind always, if I say something wrong, these people know better, so they will correct me, I will look stupid. In reality, that doesn't happen. Even if you make a mistake, nobody will point it in your face when you're presenting. But that was something that I was absolutely scared of, and I just had to overcome. And I think once I overcame it, then it was easier. But you guys, I know you have classes on presentations, such an important skill. There are people that are born to present. Of course, you cannot be that good, but you can learn to be pretty good. So take all the classes, all the opportunities, present. Good presenters stick in people's minds and people's memories. And very important skill. Anything else?
So someone sent me a question because I couldn't make it all the way through. He asked, whether it is worth seeking out recruiters and applying through them, or just applying to the postings? Like, what would you recommend?
Yeah. So LinkedIn is a great tool. So postings, right? I don't even know where you see postings nowadays, right? What sites do you go to? Or you go to each company. So I personally believe, with my experience, you have less chance for your resume to be noticed if you just simply click apply and it goes, as I just described, through this automated system into the bucket. I believe the way that I approach it is I try to look for the recruiter in the company and try to connect and send via the recruiter. At least you have a human being on the other side that can take your resume. I think that's a better chance. Is it possible every single time? No, it's not possible, but I think you should try. I use LinkedIn a lot in this particular case to look for those recruiters. I do believe that anytime you can hit a person instead of a machine, it's much better. Cool. Let me see what I had on the last slide. Oh, that's it. That's all I had. Anything else I can share with you guys? Isn't that wonderful to be in college and just think about the land of opportunities that's ahead of you? I think that's the best thing. Like, take my word for it. It is the best. No matter how hard you think it is, it's the best. Because then you start with all the different, I hear Thomas talk, right? Oh, but you know, there's no homework, there's no this, no that, but you guys, you have the best time right now. Enjoy it. Don't be lazy, you know, study, but just know that this is a good time.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I have a million questions, so I'm gonna leave them in case anybody else has. So please.
Okay, I'll ask one more question then. Because I'm in this kind of realm right now too. I wanted to know what made you decide to go get your master's.
Yeah, for me, I always knew that I wanted master. Like, it was a fixed idea in my head. And that's why I went right away to get master right after bachelor. Like, I knew I wanted it, right? I was thinking, you know, whether I should get a PhD or not. I then married and got a child, so I couldn't. Like, I mean, it becomes so much harder, you know, once you get a family. But I just wanted masters. I'll tell you one thing. I think there are a lot of arguments that I've heard where people say, oh, you know, I didn't need the master, you know, I went up the ladder and I'm okay, you know. Of course, right? You can go without master, you can get to where you want to go. But to me, you know, bachelor and masters, those are like, I'm not saying that all of you have to have it. It's one of those things that, you know, I mean, that's my belief that if you don't get it now, once you are done with school, it's really hard to get back. Like, it's extremely tough, you know, just to make you go back into this. So yeah, so for me, it was kind of an easy choice. I just wanted it. Ooh.
Raph, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask about the way that you've implemented the Agile methodology, because I've learned a little bit about it, you know, fail hard, fail fast, and pivot early. And when you implement this, how do you chop up your projects to follow this Agile methodology? I know that you know, for software, it's kind of easy because you can make these incremental changes and then deploy them, monitor the changes. But for things like in the DSC, for example, you know, we have to plan out events quite far in advance, and we're not 100% sure always whether or not people are going to respond well to these events. And you know, I just wanted to know if maybe there's a process that you follow to implement this Agile methodology in all of your project management.
For sure. So let me start by saying that not every single project is possible to do Agile, and the exception in some cases are projects that have to do with hardware, building the hardware, or ordering, you know, and doing like hardware side of projects is a bit hard to, like, in some cases, just not possible to do Agile. So in some of my projects, when hardware is involved, because hardware requires pre-order, pre-plan, like you have to assume certain things and things like that, right? There's some lead time. So, you know, I combine different methodologies, right? Where software goes into this Agile chunks, but the hardware, we kind of, based on historic events or history, whatever, we kind of do it ahead of time. What you just said, you can try to do it in, you know, in Agile increments. And, you know, what you can do is you can say that my event is going to happen in November or December. The event is not Agile, right? I mean, it has to happen. But your preparation for the event could be broken into Agile increments. So what you can say is, you know, between now and December, I have 6 weeks. So that gives me, you know, normal sprints in the industry are 2 weeks. So that gives me 3 sprints. Each sprint, you can develop what we call backlog, but essentially it's your requirements. So in sprint number 1, the first 2 weeks, we are going to do advertisement, we will invite people, we will prepare the agenda. So things like that, right? Then the outcome of my sprint 1 is going to be, I'm going to know how many people I'm going to get. I'm going to know what agenda it's going to be. Then my next sprint is going to be, okay, so my agenda, let's say 100 people replied. So in the next sprint, I need to plan how I'm going to do it. Oh, because such a big event, I'm going to do a breakout sessions. I'm going to do this and that. Then you have an outcome after your second sprint, and you go into your third sprint. You see how you break it into the increments as you are planning. The event will be as a whole, which is your release, but getting there is agile. Just test it out and see.
That's a huge valuable point for us. We're pretty much, I don't know if Thomas mentioned to you, but we're in the process of getting our developers team getting familiar with the technologies, and we're trying to develop this roadmap. But it's kind of difficult with little experience to break these up.
It is. This is actually, you're hitting it on the head. So where our teams are struggling is how to break it up in the increments that you can do in 2 weeks. This is a huge hurdle, not only for you guys, but in the industry as well. And we go through multiple iterations, and people try it out, and they will learn how to break it. You will learn, but you're absolutely right. It's one of the hardest things to do. Like, I get people that come to me and say, but it's not breakable. Like, it's either this or nothing. Well, then you start kind of like peeling the onions and asking the questions, right? But what if you do the phase 1 with only this, right? Like, you only prepare your environment as a phase 1, and then you do something else. Can you break it like that? Very rarely did I find that it's not breakable, but you're absolutely right. Taking a big project, breaking into consumable increments is probably one of the hardest things to do. But it pays dividends.
And then I have a follow-up question to that. I really feel terrible for all the people that, guys, if you have questions, stop me, please. Also, I'm going to go on forever. But one of the other things in relation to breaking things apart is not only delegating responsibilities, but also managing expectations associated with that. Because you have to find out who enjoys what, but then also you have to make sure that your expectations are meeting what they're giving you, and maybe they have an idea of how things should be, but you have an idea of how things should be. There's a little bit of clash there. How do you manage that process and those relationships and
expectations?
Expectations.
So what we have is, first of all, they're like expectation setting, right? So anytime you start a project, or let's say go back to the planning an event, right? You want to understand, we call them business stakeholders. You can call them your important stakeholders, which are the people that attend, or maybe professors that evaluate you, I don't know. So you sit down with them and you want to understand, so what is your success criteria for this, right? And their success criteria may be the turnout, it may be, the material that you go through, whatever it is, right? So you kind of understand what their success criteria, and that's what you want to manage too, right? And then when you talk through the sprints, what we also do is we involve our business stakeholders in the accomplishments for each sprint. So, in your case, again, you don't want to involve all 100 people, but maybe you pick like 1 or 2 representatives that are sitting with you, and kind of like, we call it a sign off, but it's really an agreement that you guys are delivering on the value, or what they will foresee as a value, right? So you have to, one thing that I found is that transparency is extremely important. They need to understand what's happening, and they need to understand how that supports their value, right? That they want to get out of it. And by setting it up ahead of time and then taking them through is one of the best ways. No miracle, no magic, really taking them through. And you're thinking, I mean, it seems like, Raphael, you like did quite a bit of good reading, or you have great experience, because you're asking me all the questions where, you know, people struggle in companies. This is really, really cool.
I don't know. I think it's mostly just I've had a little bit of experience trying to manage projects and trying to make small versions of what you're doing, and I've failed along the way, and it's, you know,
no, you did not fail. The way I say it is, you've created an opportunity for learning. So yeah, no, that's wonderful. Your questions are so great. Excellent. Well, I know that we can probably, you know, talk more. I don't know, Thomas had said an hour. So I think we're at the top of the hour. I can stay longer, but I bet that you guys have homework.
Anybody have any other questions? No? All right.
Well, let me tell you guys, it's been my privilege and honor talking to you today. Thank you for great questions, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for
joining us.
Yeah, and if you guys have any other questions, if you have any other questions, you can just message me and I can give my mom's email to you guys, and you can shoot her an email. I'm sure she's
wonderful. Well, guys, all the best. Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
You too.
Are we going to?
Well, wait. Oh, we have new people. I want to say hi. Oh.
They all left.
Does anybody know who that girl is? I don't
know.
No,
but she came.
Oh, she's your friend, so you know her?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Does she go to the school?
Oh, that's your friend. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I sent the link to like 2 other people just to like get more.
Dude, cool. Tom, I don't understand why more people didn't show up, but that one event
let me stop
is
recording.
by far